Welcome back. Now let's talk about electoral issues. The dynamics of voting in Nigeria is soon to receive a boost with plans by the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, on the commencement of electronic voting in the Anambra governorship election next year. Now, after years of back and forth, it seems Nigeria is now ready to take a giant leap in reforming its electoral process with the proposed electronic voting. Many stakeholders have argued that the only way to inject credibility in Nigeria's electoral process is to have the system automated. The electoral body also aims to commence voter registration by the first quarter of next year, which will run till 6 months before the general elections in 2023. But of course, the issues of Nigeria's electoral system goes beyond e-voting. For some people, the culture of impunity and corruption in the system may still be the albatross of the e-voting system. The INEC chairman says an enhanced salary scale for its staff can also help check inducements during elections. And of course, the commission says it is working to ensure that happens. In the meantime, we can only wait and see how the e-voting goes in Anambra State ahead of the general elections in 2023. And if Professor Mahmoud Yakubu is able to pull this off, to be candid, he would have written his name in gold. And of course, it would be a record, not just in this country, but across the sub-region and possibly in Africa. Joining me now to discuss this issue further is Omoru Aigbe, who is a political affairs analyst. Ms. Aigbe, thank you very much for joining us on the program. How excited are you to hear that INEC is planning to deploy e-voting in the Anambra State governorship election next year?
Well, thanks for having me. The word excitement is a bit relative, even though something that we want, but the curiosity of what kind of device and methodology or
Absolutely.
the kind of system to be used is what would cause the excitement. I'm not too excited that we just have a simple device where ACAS can have a feed day in terms of stopping the information that is getting towards the main server of INEC and changing figures around there before transmitting it out. So we don't want to just get excited. We need to know the kind of electronic device, the kind of app, the kind of technology that will be adopted before we can begin to get excited. Across the world, major democracies across the world are not even using electronic voting. So Absolutely. We need to be very conscious. Let's not get excited because Brazil and I think India so are the only democracies that are using electronic voting, not the United States. I mean, we are still waiting for the counting of ballots in the US. In the UK, the same thing happened. It's a paper trail. But even though the paper trail in our system is very expensive, and that is why one begins to think about the innovation, which electronic voting is one of those innovations. So what do I mean? Election in Nigeria is becoming too expensive. We can't continue with this expensive
and that is the aspect we really need to deal with, right?
Yes, that is a very issue we need to address. We must eradicate those collation points that are very irrelevant to the ultimate goal. So election took place at the polling unit level. Yes. So why do we need to go to the ward? Why don't we just find a way to meet somewhere and accumulate? I'm just curious, but that is
just transmit the results from the polling unit straight.
Straight up. One, it will ease the process of it will ease the amount of money spent on elections. It will reduce the number of calamities,
interference, and all of that.
Exactly. However, it will open up its own cacan-worm. And that cacan-worm is exactly what we need to look at, because we are not new to devices. We are not new to electronic transmission. We know what happened in the banking sector, even though people are in the banking system, there's been a whole lot of security. But recently, we just heard about anonymous hacking systems, including the system of very big organizations that you wouldn't expect them to hack. So these are some of the fundamental questions that we need to put in place. And that is why I have spoken elsewhere that if we must use electronic device, that technology must be blockchain. We must deploy adequate technology, even though blockchain has its own kind of, but then it is minimal. Just mainly deploying a server based somewhere. Maybe there's a server based in the United States, or a server based in Russia, or a server based in Israel. But those who owns those servers can be bought over. How do we ensure that those who gave us the technology are not easily bought over?
Yeah, Mr. Agbe, if you can hear me, I said, look, I appreciate what you have just said, because the impression most people have is that the moment you deploy e-voting, it's like now, all of the problems in the country are solved.
That's what I'm saying. How can you solve all of the problem? It creates a new one. So we must be problems. But that problem you are solving creates a level of problem. So what we are doing is to look beyond the solution of today and think of what the solution of today, the kind of problem the solution of today will bring, and try to find solution looking forward and not just looking at the problem now. That we're able to reduce cost of election. We have eradicated world, local government, state coalition, and we have reduced our personnel. We have cut down on paper printing and all of that, which are very huge. The logistical deployment, which is becoming a problem in this system, has been dropped. But also look at it. This country is not entirely covered with the internet spread. So that may not be a problem, because we could solve them by using some digital platform that are not necessarily NTN, Glo, that uses MANS and all of that. I mentioned somewhere that if you travel around the world, you could use your mobile device connecting to different assets as you move along. For example, a Turaya mobile phone doesn't require an internet service like MTN or Co. It's a satellite mobile phone. So we could deploy just an election activity. We could just pay for that satellite internet that will give you anywhere in the radius of Nigeria. You could access the same level of internet. Again, let me put on paper on this table that what INEC is deploying is not internet voting. It is very important we state that clearly. It is not internet voting. You won't be in London and vote. You have to still be in Nigeria and vote. Gradually, by the time we solve this electronic voting, which is you go to the polling unit, you still have to go to the polling unit and click on a device. The same thing that happened in Kaduna State at a time during the local government election. Where a device was at the polling unit, people go there and click on the party of their choice, and it aggregates. So it aggregates electronically, and when you send, it aggregates at a certain collation point. Just like the US, you see results popping up, everyone looking at the screen, and you see results are coming in. So you don't need someone, you don't even need an INEC chairman to announce a result. You just need a system that is coming and it sees that, yes, this is going. Even before the INEC chairman announces result, people already see who is winning and who is losing.
Now, another question I want to ask you, and that's a big problem here. You did talk about it briefly in your opening remark now. That's the issue of the cost of election in this country. So, for instance, I want to run for the governorship of a state. To do that, I might be needing as much as 7 to 10 billion naira. It just doesn't make sense. Now, if an individual spends this huge amount of money running to serve, it's a no-brainer that if this individual gets there, he would definitely want to recoup his investment. So what exactly do we need to do to cut down on this cost of running for offices in this country? Because it's a big challenge, and it's part of the reasons why we're obviously not getting service from the leaders we elect.
Okay, so thanks, DEJI. You're right with the point of about 7 billion, but I'm going to tell you the truth. The 7 billion is not entirely what they spend on the election as a governor. About 5 billion of that money goes to vote buying. So because you needed to buy the people's vote. So, for example, you are giving 10,000 naira or 5,000 naira to a typical candidate, a typical voter, and you have done your calculation to say there are 3,000 polling units in my state, and I'm going to deploy about 300,000 naira each or 500,000 naira each to those polling units. Because I expect to buy at least give and take up to 10,000 eligible voters in that area who will vote for me. And I'm going to spend 10,000 naira per voter. So I'm going to look at 10,000 naira times 10,000 voter So you're going to then go around the entire state because you want to win majority of the vote in that in that state. That is another area of the cost of election. The real cost of election, constitutional provision for the cost of election for a governor is not expected. I can't remember the figure on top of my head now. The governor is not expected to spend up to $1 billion at all. That's if you spend $1 billion as an individual, you have that's what we call campaign finance. INEC is supposed to monitor those campaign finance.
Absolutely, but we know it goes beyond that anyway.
Yes, exactly. That's where I'm going. Again, INEC doesn't have the capacity to monitor campaign finance. If you are running for elections of your state as a governor, what you need with the introduction of this kind of device from INEC, all you need to do is to find a way to meet people and sell your manifesto, sell your platform to them. Let them connect with you. Then they are able to vote for you. Reducing the cost of you running for an election, and you need about 7 billion naira. What the real money you need is just the money for your campaign. Maybe printing of billboard, advertorial on TV and radio and newspapers, which are the normal costs for campaign. But the extra costs that people spend on campaign are usually used to buy people's votes.
And that's where the bulk of the money goes to.
The bulk of the money, arguably 80% of the money that political actors spend goes to vote buying, either before or during the election. And with the introduction of the kind of device, electronic device that INEC is proposing, it will reduce any voter ability to show their ballot. So they don't have to show any party agent their ballot, so there will be no need to buy any vote. If you give anybody money to go and vote for you, it will not be between the person's conscience and the money or food the person has taken from you. So if the person goes ahead to vote for you, it is because the person wants to vote for you. It is not because the person is coerced to vote for you because he needed the 5,000 naira after he had voted. So a lot of things would have also been reduced. With that, I believe that the vote buying, which is becoming a phenomenon, a very ugly phenomenon, like I said just now, even though it's also coming up in the States, the United States election has also proved that there's motivation of voters to vote in an election. It was in the UK election too. The Prime Minister was going to grocery stores to pick up food stuff to send to people's homes. So, but those are not election day vote buying. It could be motivation for your party supporters to come and vote. We could deal with that later to say, well, if the people eventually go out on the day of election and then voted according to the food or money they got, it is because they want to vote that intention. But they could actually have gotten those food and money and get it to the polling unit because it's going to be secret ballot with a device where you click and you don't have to live there with anything. The only thing you may live with is a tag telling you that you have voted. And once that tag is given to you, the tag must not carry whether you voted for APC or PDP. It will just give you a tag, but I don't even think the voter need that tag. What the voter needs is that you have voted. There will be a printout. I suggest a printout anyway in Eritrea, a country called Eritrea. What they do, after you click on that device, a printout is printed and it goes into a secured box. That secured box is not open until someone challenges the election. So when you challenge an election and you go to court, and the court will give verdict to open up that ballot, that box, that secret box. When it is open and they recount, and that your proposal was wrong, you failed to prove that process was rigged, then you'll be banned from running election for a space of upward of 10 years. We need those kind of deterrent to stop people from making unnecessary, baseless argument about rigging an election. So it's important that electronic introduction to the electoral process will reduce cost of election on the side of INEC and also reduce the cost of election on the side of the candidates. That is the truth, and that will happen.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Omori Igwe. Thank you very much for your contributions. Well, that's how much we can take on the program. And of course, if you want to watch this program again, it's simple. Just go to our various social media platforms. You'll see the program and lots more there. So we'll see you again next week. Bye-bye.